The latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. 2 were killed and 12 others wounded as soldiers belonging to the Army's 32nd Infantry Battalion were ambushed in Basilan on Wednesday night by a militia group linked to the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. The soldiers were providing security for a team from the United Nations Development Program for a livelihood project in the province. The Philippine Army has condemned the ambush in the strongest terms and branded it as a cowardly and treacherous act by the perpetrators. Did the ambush cut short the hard-earned peace in Basilan? How soon can the AFP bring the perpetrators to justice? Joining us live at the BNC studio is the spokesperson of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Colonel Francel Margareth Padilla. Good morning, Colonel Francel.
Good morning, Attorney Karen, and thank you for having us here this morning.
Colonel, let's start first with the ambush. Can you briefly describe to us what happened?
This was an operation, security operations of our troops in the area. No, our troops were there for a support for the members of the UNDP. They were conducting, at this point we are already in the normalization process. So these development organizations are conducting development programs in the area. So us in the Armed Forces of the Philippines, particularly the Army, are providing security for them.
And were the people in the group of the UNDP, were they foreigners or mga local Filipinos po ba?
Mostly, these are foreigners, no? And there are also some Filipinos that are part of the group.
And since this is a livelihood program, so this was for Basilan, for the benefit of Basilan, would you know why they were ambushed?
That one, we cannot speculate the reasons on the other side why the ambush occurred. But in our case, it was a legitimate security operation meant to, push forward the peace process in terms of this normalization efforts with our development projects.
Were there anyone from the UNDP that was also harmed or affected in the ambush, or were the targets just the armed forces?
There were no members of the UNDP were harmed. We were at the point of actually proceeding towards picking them up from another area where they were conducting their development.
So hindi kasama yung UNDP?
At that point, hindi pa.
Point.
Opo,
so bago pa sila ma-meet, na-ambush
yes,
na. And would you already know who's responsible for this? Is it really a group that's related to the MILF, or were they acting without the blessing of the leadership of the MILF?
Yes, ma'am. No, we are led to believe that there were lawless elements that were part of the encounter, and then in-acknowledge na rin ito ng MILF that the others who were there were part of their group.
And before this incident, gaano na katagal po na walang encounter sa Basilan?
Matagal na, ma'am, no? As you look at the peace process, we are already on the normalization phase.
Yeah. So in terms of years,
yes,
how many years na po?
Ilang years na, ma'am. I think around 5 years na walang major encounters. There are certain incidents, but there are isolated small incidents in the past years.
In the past years. And so when you say normalization process, what does that mean? Does that mean that you can consider Basilan already a peaceful area na hindi na siya conflict
Yes,
area?
ma'am. No, it means, attorney, na medyo advanced na yung phase ng peace process natin at this point. Normalization, they're already part of the society. Development projects na nga tayo.
Open na po ba sila for tourism at that point?
Yes, oo. Nakita naman natin na itong past years talagang nag-open up na itong Basilan province then for tourism.
Would you say that despite this incident, it's now safe to go to Basilan?
Ang ano natin dyan, dapat magtulungan talaga tayo dito na talagang ma-maintain natin itong pag-usad na itong ating peace process.
How will this affect the peace process, this incident?
Ang gusto nga natin mangyari dyan, makipagtulungan ang both sides to be able to get these perpetrators to face really the law. No? Kailangan makita natin ito to prove that there's really us intently there for peace and order. So, hindi natin dapat i-undermine itong leaps and bounds that we were able to gain with the peace process. And so, we're really hoping na ma-resolve itong issue na ito and for us to move forward with the gains of the peace process.
And in the meantime, are you closing Basilan to tourists or other activities while this investigation is ongoing?
Sa ngayon, ma'am, we are business as usual kung ano na yung nag-gain natin dyan. But ang pinupush nga natin dyan is, of course, kung sino po ang mga dapat managot dito sa insidenteng ito, dapat po harapin po nila ang batas dito.
And meron na po ba tayong identities ng perpetrators? There were reports na nagpa-picture pa yung ibang perpetrators with I think a burning truck. So, meron na po ba tayong identities nila?
At this point, ma'am, this is an open investigation and both sides, we want na pagtulungan natin na ma-resolve itong issue na ito. Of course, on our side, we had our casualties from our end and we really deeply sympathize with the families with this. So at this point po, ang Armed Forces of the Philippines would like to acknowledge the heroism and sacrifice of our soldiers and we really want justice to be served.
Are you at liberty to share the identities of the 2 armed forces members who passed away?
Naibigay na po ito ng lower units natin. At this point, ma'am, from my end, I am not in liberty to give the names as we want to respect po yung privacy ng grieving families po nila.
And what type of assistance was given to the families of the victims?
Meron po tayong standard po na assistance sa ganitong cases sa Sandatahang Lakas ng Pilipinas. No? So they will be given the appropriate awards and accordingly po for their heroism and sacrifice, giving their ultimate sacrifice for the for peace. And with that, meron din pong mga benefits po na ma-receive ng families nila. We also have scholarship grants para po sa mga kaanak nila.
And the victims that were injured were taken to different hospitals. Why could they not be taken to just one hospital altogether?
Iba't iba kasi, ma'am, yung extent ng injuries nila. So we look at the different capabilities of different facilities kasi marami ito, 12 yung wounded natin. So para po din yung kaukulang atensyon maibigay to particular individuals depending on the extent of their injuries. So once po na they're fully recovered and stable na po yung conditions nila, then they will all be transferred to the military hospital na po for them to recover.
How severe were the injuries? Meron po bang critical condition?
Wala naman po tayong nabanggit na nasa critical condition. Our Chief of Staff already went there yesterday to look at the conditions nga po nitong ating wounded troops and they were also given the Wounded Personnel Medal accordingly and syempre binigyan po sila ng encouragement to go back to their duties as soon as they are fully recovered.
And from the side of the perpetrators, how many also lost their lives?
Wala pa tayong exact na report from the other side, ma'am.
So hindi niyo pa sure kung ilan or kung merong namatay sa kabilang
Yes,
side?
ma'am. Meron mga numbers na nabigay, ma'am, but we cannot yet confirm at this time.
And ang main reports po na merong 2 MILF na namatay, would you know if that's accurate?
Yun nga po ang numbers that were given us, but we do not have the identities at this time. So gusto po natin nga sa pakikipagtulungan ng both parties for this, na malaman din po natin yung buong extent po din sa kanilang side.
And how has the MILF reacted in all of this? Are they willing to cooperate and have they acknowledged any links to the perpetrators?
Yes, ma'am, and yan nga po din ang panawagan ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. For them po na makipagtulungan sa atin na talaga pong harapin nitong mga perpetrators nito at kanilang maling nagawa.
Pero hindi pa po sinabi ng MILF na talagang responsable dito yung group na may links din sa kanila?
As they have acknowledged, ma'am,
Okay.
na member din nila po yung some of those that were part of the encounter po.
But they have not confirmed if there were any instructions from their leadership.
Yun nga po yung ngayon na nire-resolve natin, ma'am, no? And yun nga po ang panawagan ng Sandatahang Lakas ng Pilipinas na for them to really, give the proper sanctions to these members of them na may ganitong nagawa.
And have there been any pronouncements from the commanding general of the Philippine Army, General Roy Galido, after this incident occurred?
Yes, ma'am, no, ang pronouncement po nga ng ating CGPA, of course we condone po, no, in the highest sense po itong nangyaring ito. Ang ano natin diyan, syempre po meron kaming mga casualties from our end. And this should not have been itong kahinatnan ng ganito, considering that it is a legitimate security operation. No? And this is already for development. As I said, no, we have already been in leaps and bounds in terms of our peace process. So why would this really happen pa, no? To this extent? Our vehicles are identified as military vehicles, no? And of course, well identified naman din po ang ating mga troops.
And in terms of the peace process before, have there been any discussions or napag-usapan na kung anong mangyayari if there is a break, meaning someone violates any of the agreements in the peace process? Because as you said, they were identified as Army or also armed forces vehicles. So any attack to that is clearly an attack to the government and also against what was agreed upon in the peace process.
Yes, ma'am, no? Kaya talagang ire-review natin po yan. And through the course of the investigation, as nagbigay naman po sila ng kanilang word na makikipagtulungan dito, yan po talagang ine-expect natin na mangyari po.
And would you know what the consequences are, the possible consequences, if they were to violate any of the terms of the peace process?
At this point, ma'am, no, sabi ko nga, this is an ongoing investigation. So how it would ensue and moving forward, we'll know in the next coming days.
But you mentioned earlier that it's going to be business as usual. Does this mean that the other programs, development programs, will continue?
Yes, ma'am, no? If you just say business as usual, ganun din po ang Sandatahang Lakas ng Pilipinas. Hindi po kami titigil na mag-perform ng aming mandato. That is to protect the people and to secure the state. And of course, kailangan po i-maintain natin ang peace doon. So patuloy pa rin po, no, ang ating mga tropa doon sa area to perform our mandate accordingly. That kung ano nga po yung gains that we have now, we want to maintain it and push forward to the development process as well.
What about people from the private sector? UNDP, hindi naman po ba sila natakot na ituloy yung livelihood program?
Yan nga po ang gusto natin na i-assure sa kanila na nandito pa rin po ang AFP to support them in terms of securing them in the area.
Have they asked for information as to whether the UNDP was a target in the ambush?
This will all be part of the investigation.
But in the meantime, wala naman pong sinabi that they're withdrawing any of their programs there.
So wala naman po sa ngayon.
And what about Chief of Staff, General Romeo Browner? He also visited the victims of this ambush. Has he made any instructions to the armed forces?
Yun nga po, ma'am, no, tinignan na po niya yung conditions ng ating mga tropa on the ground. Pinuntahan na nga po niya itong mga wounded. And of course, nakipag-usap na po siya sa commanders on the ground. And of course, he trusts naman po that the commanders on the ground will really have a good sense of what is in the area. And nakita nga po natin, no, na dapat po natin na i-acknowledge that we have really gone so far with the peace process and hindi po natin gusto na maantala pa ito. Over and above that, we are approaching the election period. So ang gusto po natin talaga dyan is be able to maintain a free and peaceful elections. So hindi po natin gusto na may mga ganitong pangyayari or meron pang sumunod dito. So ito po ang kailangan ma-assure natin both sides na hindi na po maulit ang ganitong scenario.
And from a military strategy, meron po bang instructions from General Browner? Pinadagdagan po ba yung troops that are deployed in Basilan? Meron po bang binago sa mga security protocols? Ano po yung mga instructions?
Our Chief of Staff trusts the wisdom of our commanders on the ground. So we do not need to micromanage them as we trust that they know the area so well. at this point. And ito po, mga seasoned officers naman ang nandito, mga dati na rin po silang mga na-detailed in this particular area. So we trust po that they will be the ones to recommend accordingly kung ano po yung kailangan, kung magdagdag pa ng tropa or deploy accordingly. We leave it to the commanders on the ground.
And what type of support has the local government given? Yung sila Governor Hataman, have they been also supportive of the armed forces?
Yes, nagbigay naman na po sila ng statement, and yan nga po, moving forward, magtutulungan po ang iba't ibang stakeholders at this point to resolve this issue po.
And in terms of the elections, ano pong type of preparations ang ginagawa ng armed forces to ensure peaceful elections in Basilan and other parts of Mindanao this coming May?
Yes po, no, under the umbrella of COMELEC, nandyan po yung deployments natin na nakikipagtulungan tayo sa iba't ibang ahensya para dito. So we are closely coordinating with the PNP in terms of maintaining the peace and law and order, no, sa different areas. So we'll be providing troops for our checkpoints. We'll be also providing security sa ating mga precincts, transport of ballots, and anything po that required from the Armed Forces of the Philippines in order to maintain po and be able to conduct a peaceful election, free and open, no, gagawin po natin.
And Colonel Francel, di ba gun ban na po? So in this case sa ambush, the perpetrators were carrying guns illegally. Ano po ba yung ginawa nila dun sa ambush? Can you describe to us in more detail kung bato ba sila ng mga pillboxes or ano po ba nangyari dun sa ambush?
Sa ngayon po, ma'am, no, ito nga lahat under investigation na siya. What we have for the public is what was already been posted and all, no. But ilalabas naman natin as the investigations come out, yung result ng investigation. So titignan natin lahat, ma'am, ang bawat anggulo nito, hihimay-himayin natin yung pangyayari, no, from start to how it ended. And titignan po natin kung paano ang how we move forward from there. Ang panawagan nga po natin dito is for the MILF, no, na talagang ipagpatuloy nila and give sanctions accordingly. Ito po sa mga miyembro din nila na nalihis ng landas.
There were also guns carried by the perpetrators in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and but going back to elections preparations, sa BARM naman po ba, meron po bang possibility na ma-postpone to because of any conflict that occurred here in Basilan, or from what you know, tuloy pa rin ang election sa BARM?
For that, ma'am, we'll leave it to the higher authorities to decide on that, no. On the side of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we know and acknowledge that this is a historical feat, no. It's the first time na nagaganapin ito. And so from our end, we give our full commitment to assure po that the AFP will give our full support to be able to conduct this peacefully.
And right now, have you identified any hotspots in BARM?
Meron naman pong mga list na binigay ang ating Philippine National Police, no, na different hotspots and kung ano po yung categorization nito. And with that, dun po din nakabase yung aming deployments with them.
Can you give us an example of some of these hotspots?
Hindi ko nakita, ma'am, yung exact places, no? But we were given a list with categories like red categories, orange category, and yellow category. So with that, yun po yung number of elements that will be given and deploying together with the PNP.
And do you remember po, for example, Zamboanga, is that red? Ano po yung mga examples ng red spots?
Meron tayong mga different areas that were given, but I cannot directly pinpoint kung ano po yun doon under ng red, orange, and yellow. So this will be operational details that we will not divulge din na din.
Not divulge, okay. But for the public, meron bang source of information where they can check kung alin ang red zones, ano yung, like you said, ano pa ba yung colors? Green I suppose is safe. Or
yes.
Para rin if they want to visit, they can see alin dito yung safe or not.
Meron naman po tayo dyan, no, yung ating law enforcement agency, sila po yung nagbigay niyan. So PNP will give us the ano po, no, sila po yung naglabas ng categorization.
Okay, and that's publicly available information.
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much, Colonel Francel Padilla.
Thank you, Ma'am Attorney Karen, and maraming salamat po for having the AFP here. Rest assured po no, na andyan po yung full commitment natin with the peace process. But of course, sa mga ganito po, as we din in the armed forces, pag meron po kami no, na mga nalilihis ng landas ng mga tropa, we make sure that the sanctions are given to them accordingly. And we expect po the same from the other end.
Okay, and the sanctions involve what's under our criminal laws, yung mga imprisonment, and that's the sanctions that we can expect.
Yes, ma'am, no, kung saan po napapaloob itong kanilang ginawa, dapat po panagutan po nila.
Thank you so much again, Colonel Francel.
Thank you, ma'am.
Up next, we commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Mamasapano massacre when At the Forefront returns after a short break. Welcome back at the Forefront. The Mamasapano massacre that killed 44 members of the Philippine National Police Special Action Force will mark its 10th year tomorrow. After 10 years, why is justice still elusive for the families of the Mamasapano massacre? We have on the line the person tasked to lead the investigation of the Mamasapano massacre years ago, retired police director and now Mayor of Baguio City, Benjamin Magalong. Good morning, Mayor Benji.
Good morning, Atty. Karen. Good morning din po sa ating mga viewers.
Mayor Benji, it's been 10 years since the Mamasapano massacre occurred. Can you briefly refresh our memories on what happened at that time?
Okay. First of all, I would like to express my deepest sympathies to all the families who continue to bear yung loss nila, no? Dahil talaga nakakalungkot after 10 years, wala pa rin judgment. Kumbaga, parang kulang pa rin. Wala pa rin sila naramdaman na justice. But anyway, this was the incident we're in. They were after Marwan, yung one of the wanted criminals in the entire planet. Si Marwan, who was responsible for the death of many Americans, many Europeans, including Filipinos as well, Asian, during series of bombings. At ito yung project nila. It was very unfortunate that they were able to kill Marwan, but in the process, 44 of our SAC troopers, including many of the MILS fighters and some civilians were also killed here. Kaya nakakalungkot na because of miscommunication, at the same time lack of collaboration and coordination, this happened. And nakakalungkot din. That serves as a napakaraming lessons na nakuha natin dito. And probably later on, I will be mentioning all these lessons.
Yes. And Mayor Benji, at the time, there were over 1,000 people that opened fired at the SAF, at the Special Armed Forces. Would you know po kung this was a concerted group, or were they all from the community that reacted to the SAF being in their area?
Well, I've operated in those areas, Atty. Karen. And you're not only fighting regular armed fighters dito. Once na-encuentro ang regular armed fighters, during that time, tutulong ang community. Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng yung typical word na pintakasi. Hindi mo na alam kung saan gagaling yung puto kasi pati community na kalaban mo na eh. That's how they band together. Maski na magkakaaway sila, pero against a common enemy, nagbaban talaga sila. Pero nabago na rin ang kanilang pananaw ngayon because of this peace process. Kaya lang during that time talaga, almost siguro mga 800 to 1,000 fighters were there. Combination na yan, community, members of the community at yung mga armed regulars nila. Kaya lalo-lalo na yung nung naubos na nila yung nandun sa field, sa cornfield. At hinahabol na nila yung members ng Seaborn. This is the elite of the elite in the Philippine National Police Special Action Force. At binabanggit sa akin ng isang battalion commander ng MILF na nagtulong-tulong daw sila dun eh. Pinagtulungan daw nila pero they were really surprised that on the expertise nitong grupo natin because they were never they were not able to get near this group composed of about 40 elite fighters of the Special Action Force. Kaya pati mismong MILF hangang-hanga dito sa grupo na to. But unfortunately, as I said, 44 SAC troopers were killed.
Oo, so parang
Isang SAC
44.
trooper lang yan.
Opo.
Yes.
Oo, parang 44 against about 1,000 of others
Hindi
that
lang
were...
44 talaga, Kwan. Kasi dun sa palang sa seaboard na yun, maabot na sila ng 40. Tapos iba pa yung yung reinforcement. Yung nila, yung grupo ng galing sa Sambuanga, kasi yun yung naubos eh. Yung 55th. Yun yung yung halos naubos yun yung 55th.
Parang sila po yung na-stuck.
Iba pa yung 55th and Seaborn. So iba pa yun.
And Mayor Benji, what was the median age at the time of the soldiers? They were young soldiers at that time.
Yes, many of them siguro nandun sa age range ng mga 28 to 32, mga ganun.
So
Kasi these are
napakabata.
young people. And many of them were members of my battalion noon. And the Seaborn kasi is, yun yung unit na binuo ko. I created the Seaborn. I founded the Seaborn. And they have, very expensive and very discreet training under the U.S. Navy SEALs.
So US Navy SEAL po ang nagtitrain when it comes to the Seaborn, the Special Action Forces. And
Yes, the first group was trained by the U.S. Navy SEALs.
And Mayor Benji, you said you've also operated before in Mamasapano. Is it normal talaga in that area na the community carries their own arms? Because as you said, in this case with the Special Action Forces, they had to go, basically they were sieged by the community. Ang nakalaban na nila yung mga members of the community. But it's normal na talagang may mga sariling armas po yung mga nakatira doon.
Yeah, you'll be surprised yung mga ganyang communities kasi halos every household have 1, 2, or 3 firearms. Kasi parang status ko yan sa kanila eh. I remember dun in 2000, 1999, when we were operating in Basilan at Sulu Island. Pag may wedding, the bigger your firearm is, the more respect you get from the community. Ganun yun eh. Ganun yung culture sa lugar na yan.
So ibang-iba po talaga because we have laws that prohibit carrying firearms without the proper license to carry and permit to carry. So in this area po, walang mga enforcement of having to be licensed and prohibiting the carrying of unlicensed firearms. Hindi na enforce.
May enforcement din naman, Attorney Karen. Kaya lang, napakahirap kasi nga, bago pa lang mag-take off yung ating mga kapulisan doon, siyempre, iniisip din nila na member ng pamilya o kaya magkakaroon ng rido, lalo-lalo pag nalaman ng kabila na yung informasyon galing sa kanila, paano pa kung nagkaroon ng sakitan pa, may namatay. Yun na yun, yung rido. Kaya iniiwasan. Sometimes, you have to think na iba yung reality, iba kasi yung situation sa Metro Manila, iba rin yung situation sa Hulong. These are different, very, very different situations. These are realities that you have to, face and you have to consider. We might be very strict sa enforcement natin, pero talagang may mga peculiarities and complexities kasi sa isang environment, sa isang lugar. Kaya talaga yun rin ang kaya naapektuhan din yung law enforcement.
Yes. And understanding that type of community and landscape, Mayor Benji, ikaw po yung nag-start nung Seaborn, which is an elite group that is trained by the Navy SEAL of the U.S. In this case, nakita po natin na despite how well they were trained, we lost 44 members of the SAF. What was the effect on you of the Mamasapano incident? Because parang yung elite force na na-create ninyo, ang dami pong nawala na tao sa inyo because of that. And like you said, yung unfortunate dito is some of the, perhaps yung pagka-implement ng O-Plan Exodus, some of the miscommunications. How did this incident impact you? And later siguro po yung lessons that you learned from this incident.
Yeah. Well, alam mo kasi, the following day, nangyari yan kasi Sunday. So Monday, immediately, we flew to Cotabato. Tapos nagkaroon, nung dumarating na yung mga katawan, okay pa sa akin eh. Kumbaga parang hindi pa nag-sipin sa akin kung ano nangyari because I was more focused on organizing yung investigation teams na gagamitin ko. But during that time, I was not yet appointed as the head of the Board of Inquiry. Pinaprepare ko lang as CIDG head. Pinaprepare ko lang because I need to be very proactive about it. So I stayed behind for 2 more days kasi dadalhin kami, sabi ko kay General Spina, sir, kami na lang magdadala sa Manila. So nung dinala namin sa Manila, tinurn over na namin yung body and yung nga, nag-resign nga si General Inking as siya yung interim kasi na head ng Board of Inquiry. So nagsabi siya, sir, I would like to resign, sabi niya kay General Spina because, sir, meron akong, sabi niya, baging bias ako because I'm occupying this position and I have some sentiments against the Special Action Force, why I was not informed about it despite the fact that I'm the area commander, sabi niya. So may biases siya, kaya nag-resign siya. The following day, during the event, yung ceremony sa loob ng bikutan, doon na lang nag-setting sa akin kung anong nangyari. At doon na talaga ako umiyak. Secretly talaga, magulgul ako eh. Umiyak ako noon eh. Hindi ko alam, nakikita ko na yung mga mukha ng mga tao na nakalagay na sa casket. Doon na lang ako umiyak. Tapos doon na rin yung araw na yun that I was designated as the head of the Board of Inquiry. So, during the investigation, doon namin nakita na napakarami palang lapses, napakarami rin palang mga missteps. And these are lessons that should be studied and at the same time disseminated to all our special units so that this will not be committed again. Hindi na maulit ito.
And Mayor Benji, this is already now the 10th year anniversary. So lumabas na po 10 years ago yung report that the investigation committee that you headed, that time it came out already. And we saw there yung naka-reveal naman doon yung Oplan Exodus. So sino po yung mga involved talaga? As you said, some like Espino, they were not involved in the planning. Sino po talaga yung mga kasama sa planning?
Well, the core planners are actually members of the Special Action Force led by General Leo Peñas. Kasama rin dyan si General Alan Purisima. And regularly, they update the President. Regularly, they provide yung progress report nila kay Presidente. And at the same time, I'm pretty sure na ako, very confident ako na walang kalam-alam talaga si Secretary Maroha. Because I saw his reaction. Ganon din si DND Secretary. Nakita ko yung reaction nila when during the briefing talagang galit na galit sila. Tinatanong nila si Leo. But then when Leo, hindi na niya mapigilan kasi talagang sinisigawan na siya eh. Nung hindi na niya mapigilan yung sarili niya, sinabi na niya na the President is well informed of the operation. Kaya tumatala.
And since we know who was really involved in the planning of Oplan Exodus, ang tanong po sa mga Pilipino, bakit wala pang nananagot dun sa nangyari, dun sa SAF 44?
Well, cases where alam mo naman kami, we're just a fact-finding body, and Attorney Karen, you help us a lot, especially in the preparation of the document. Not a lot of people are aware of this, kaya napakalaki ng role ni Attorney Karen dito. On the sidelines siya nagtatrabaho. But nonetheless, we prepared all the documents, we gave it to the investigating body, sa NBI, tapos pinadala din namin ng kopya yung National Prosecution Service. So, nag-file naman ng case, but unfortunately, all the cases that were filed were dismissed. No? Tapos, nag-refile ulit kami when I became mayor. I was asked again by the families, represented by Attorney Ferdy Topacio, na mag-file ulit kami. So, binago namin, winidraw namin yung weak cases, tapos nag-refile ulit. Pero unfortunately, na-dismiss ulit yung case. Kaya, hanggang ngayon, nakalungkot nga na wala pa rin nananagot. Ang daming namatay, wala pa rin nananagot.
And in terms of...
siguro, yes, please go
Opo.
ahead, Atty.
Pag-assistance naman po ba may natanggap yung families of the victims?
Believe me, Atty. Karen, they were given, kung sa, ang assistance, ako na magsasabi sa iyo, yung assistance na natanggap nila, financial, educational assistance, all the other assistance, coming both from government, private sector, and from the U.S. government. Ako na nagsasabi sa iyo, kung yung sundalo nakakatanggap ng 1 inch, compare mo na lang, 1 inch, yung mga SAC troopers na namatay, kasama na rin yung kanilang pamilya, probably mga 1 foot, 12 inches ang natanggap nilang mga benefits.
So hindi po parang akma yung natanggap nila for the service that they provided to the country?
Well, alam mo, pag namatayan ka, maski na ano pa, walang ganyan, hindi mo ma-quantify yung loss. Pero when it comes to benefits na natanggap nila, sabi ko nga, kung yung ordinary sundalo, pulis, kung namatay sa gera, ang tatanggapin lang niya is, let us say, 1 inch of benefit. Ang natanggap ng mga SAC troopers natin is 1 foot of benefits, 12 inches. Talagang maraming naibigay sa kanilang tulong.
Galing po sa gobyerno ito?
Both government, private sector, pati na rin sa assistance from the U.S. government. Malaki po na itanggap nila.
And in your personal opinion po, is there something that should be done by the government further to address this issue? Or do you think justice would be elusive at this point? Because former President Benigno Aquino III, who was the head of the government at the time this occurred, has already passed away. And when it comes to benefits, at least na alagaan naman po yung families ng SAF victims. But from having a case precedent, meaning how we should deal with incidents like this, do you think dapat magkaroon pa rin ng some form of retribution from a judicial standpoint?
Well, alam mo, wala na tayong tinitingnan nga namin. Are there new evidence that would prompt the filing of another case? Wala na In-exhaust na lahat So siguro, ang naisip namin is let's move forward, time for healing, and then just learn from the incident. It should teach us about effective leadership, about interagency collaboration, about communication, thorough planning, yung tinatawag nating C4, yung cooperation, coordination, communication, and collaboration. Alam mo, yun yung importante siguro. Let's learn from it. Let the armed forces and the Philippine National Police learn from it. And at the same time siguro, tingnan din natin balikat uli natin yung basically the situation in the area. What causes that conflict? Itong conflict sa society. Ito nga, nangyari na uli itong Basilan. Marami na namang misunderstanding at misinterpretation yan. So talagang kailangan talaga na lasting stress solution for us to be able to attain peace in Mindanao area. So kailangan talaga rito matinding pang-dialogue, talagang matinding empowerment ng mga communities. Ang dami pang dapat gawin pala. Hindi pa pala tayo tapos dito sa ating peace process, Atty. Karen.
Yes. And at that time, Mayor Benji, when the Mamasapano incident occurred, how did that affect the peace process between the government and the MILF?
Siyempre, na-strain yung relationship. In fact, maganda na nga yung takbo nung ating peace process yung ating ongoing talks with the MILF. Pero na-stall. Na-stall yun. It was stalled because of the incident. Because there was so much distrust between government forces at MILF. Complicated by the Mamasapano incident. Pero eventually, naka-recover, and that's the reason why the BARM was created. I think this is the 6th year of the BARM now. At marami na silang naharap ng mga challenges. Ngayon, nagkakaroon ng mga breakaway groups, pero pinipilit naman ng mga MILF na unify lahat. Pero siyempre, there will always be disgruntled people inside any organization for that matter.
And ngayon po, nagmeron namang encounter sa Basilan po. And this also involves the MILF or groups that are related to the MILF. Ano pong masasabi ninyo with this recent incident?
Well, pinapanood ko nga yung pinapanood ko nga yung video na parang someone is rejoicing. Pero siyempre, hindi natin malaman ano bang grupo yan. Are these MILF fighters or are these the breakaway groups, members of the breakaway groups? Hindi namin alam eh. Kaya better siguro that for the meantime, I'll just pass judgment. And wala muna akong comment until I really determine kung sino talaga yung perpetrators at the same time who are the people who were seen in that videos.
When it comes to the seaborne, ano na po yung updates ninyo? So ever since the Mamasapano incident occurred, were there changes to the way the seaborne is trained or in terms of planning yung mga operations po nila?
Alam mo, Attorney Karen, sad to state na so far the seaborne is concerned. No? I'm proud to say that they did not commit any mistake during that operation. They performed very well. They were up to date. They performed their immediate action drills perfectly. That's the reason why they were able to reduce their casualties. They were able to account for their casualties and fatalities as well. Diba? Nakita mo, hindi nga nakalapit yung ang dami-dami na. Sabi nga nung battalion commander ng MILF, sir, pinagtulungan na nga namin yan eh. Pinagtulungan na nga namin pero hindi kami nakalapit. Ang gagaling ng mga bata na yun. Sinabi sa akin mismo. No? Kasi, di ba, pumasok ako sa darapanan to conduct the investigation noon. Yun yung major MILF camp. But, ang dun sa problema dun sa 50-50, yung unang na wipe out na dun po. Doon talaga yung may nakita kami mga lapses doon. So anyway, nagkaroon na ng debriefing. Immediately after that incident, extensive yung kanilang debriefing, extensive din yung kanilang introspection na ginawa para malaman nila and learn from that incident. So marami na rin changes na nangyari, pati na rin pa nila mga doctrines. Ang dami na rin changes na nangyari.
But it's good to hear that having the Special Action Force is still an ongoing initiative of the government. Yung funding po ba, do they get funding support to continue, having this type of elite training?
Well, alam mo kasi, Attorney Karen, yung Special Action Force na ngayon is very different from the Special Action Force when I was there. Nung time na I was there, mga 4 lang kami na batalyon eh. So when you talk about 4 battalions, we're just about 1,800. Ngayon, almost 16 battalions yata, 12 battalions, napakalaki na. How can you support an elite unit with that number? Di ba dapat for you to be able to really, sustain yung status mo as an elite unit, dapat konti lang talaga kayo. Konti lang talaga kayo. At talagang you're just cutting edge. Kumbaga parang rapid deployment unit ka lang dapat. Hit and strike, deploy, hit, strike, and then withdraw. Dapat, ganun lang dapat siya. Pero nangyayari kasi doon sa SAP natin ngayon, nagiging territorial force na nila. Kaya nawawala na yung kanilang, kumbaga, naiiba na yung kanilang mga mission para na silang mga territorial forces na nandideploy na lang ng pangmatagalan. So siguro it's something na dapat i-consider din ng Philippine National Police. Na better siguro na yung mga sobra dyan sa Special Action Force, ilagay na lang sa mga istasyon. Kasi yun naman ang kailangan natin, police visibility. In a way, na significantly reduce na rin naman yung threat natin sa New People's Army and at the same time, threat na rin sa itong Islamist terrorists.
And so, is the U.S.
Sabi nga namin, Attorney Karen, when I was there, we were thinking of SAP 1,000 lang. Kung pwede nga lang, SAP 1,000 lang talaga. Yun ang talagang vision namin for Special Action Force.
Okay, special po talaga and elite. And is the United States still providing training support?
Yes, tuloy-tuloy naman. Noon naman, naririnig ko naman na just like the armed forces, they're getting a lot of support from the U.S. military. Ganun din naman ang condemn, ang special action force. May mga certain training na pinapayagan kasi as much as possible, ina-avoid yun na U.S. military will be dealing directly with the Philippine National Police because of our, we are civilian character, no? Namin, yung character ng PNP. Pero there are certain instances na pwede silang sumuporta, especially when it comes to terrorism at itong campaign against drugs. Pwede silang sumuporta dyan.
And Mayor Benji, what would be your message to the families of the survivors and the victims po of the Mamasapano incident in commemoration of the 10th year anniversary of the Mamasapano massacre?
Tulad ng binanggit ko kanina, Atty. Karen, I just would like to express our deepest condolences, sympathies to all the families who were affected. Alam mo, hindi na natin maibalik yung buhay nila, no? Pero we will continue to remember them. And at the same time, rest assured that the government is doing everything to learn from the mistakes, the lapses, the missteps that were committed. Let us continue to honor their sacrifices, and it's time for healing. It's time for healing.
Well said po. Maraming salamat, Mayor Benji Magalong. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Atty. Karen. God bless you.
God bless you po. This week's ambush of the Army's 32nd Infantry Battalion in Basilan brought back grim memories of the Mamasapano massacre in light of its 10th anniversary. Sustaining peace in Mindanao's hotspots has always been a challenge for generations. But a fight for peace is a battle that those in the uniformed service will uphold, a sacrifice even at the expense of their very own lives. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news, always stay at the forefront. Join us again on Monday for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Atty. Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.